70,000 years ago, the world was a place of immense danger and infinite possibility. A vast stage of deserts, mountains, rivers, and oceans that no human had ever crossed, where survival depended on courage, ingenuity, and the ability to read a world ruled by climate, predators, and scarcity. And it was in this unforgiving environment, in the sun-scorched lands of Africa, that our species stood at a threshold, poised to leave everything familiar behind and step into the unknown, driven not by conquest, but by necessity, curiosity, and an instinct that would define the future of humanity. For every footprint taken beyond the cradle of civilization would carry the promise of life, the spark of innovation, and the enduring legacy of exploration. A journey that would stretch across continents, challenge the limits of endurance, reshape ecosystems, and ultimately connect every human being on Earth through a shared story of movement, adaptation, and survival that began with that first daring step into a world uncharted and unclaimed.
70,000 years ago, under the blazing sun of Africa, a small band of humans lifted their feet from the familiar red earth and began a journey that would stretch across deserts, mountains, rivers, and oceans. A journey that would ultimately shape the destiny of every human to come. And they did so not with maps or guides, but with instinct, observation, and an unyielding drive to survive in a world of predators, famine, and extreme climate. In the Rift Valley, where language, cooperation, and culture were taking their first tentative forms, these early wanderers learned to track animals, read the patterns of seasonal rain, and use fire for warmth, cooking, and protection. Understanding in ways we can scarcely imagine that survival depended on skill, foresight, and unity. Yet, even as they honed these abilities, human populations had once shrunk to mere thousands in a genetic bottleneck that would leave an enduring mark on our DNA, a stark reminder of how fragile early life truly was. Compelled by necessity and curiosity, they began moving beyond Africa, crossing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait into the Arabian Peninsula, where the scorching deserts, unpredictable rivers, and unfamiliar predators tested every ounce of their endurance. And every decision, from when to hunt to where to seek shelter, could mean life or death, forcing communities to innovate sharper tools, clothing from animal hides, and social structures that encouraged cooperation. While encounters with other hominins, such as Neanderthals in Europe and Denisovans in Asia, presented both peril and opportunity, resulting in exchanges of knowledge, culture, and genetic material that still echo in modern humans. Traveling along the coasts of South Asia and the Indian Ocean, these pioneers began to exploit marine resources, harvesting shellfish and fish, and fashioning rudimentary rafts to follow tides and currents, skills that would ultimately carry them across open water to Australia, a remarkable feat of engineering and courage that permanently altered ecosystems and contributed to the extinction of megafauna, including giant wombats and enormous flightless birds, illustrating how human movement shaped the environment even as the environment shaped them. In Europe, the Ice Age created a frozen barrier, yet humans persevered, using fire, animal hides, and complex hunting strategies to survive sub-zero temperatures, gradually displacing Neanderthals and establishing populations whose tools, art, and symbolic practices revealed an intellect capable of abstract thought, planning, and culture. From spear throwers and blades to cave paintings and ritual objects, demonstrating that survival required not just strength, but imagination, foresight, and collaboration. Across Asia, humans adapted to deserts, forests, and mountains, domesticating dogs, storing food, and building temporary settlements, while producing art and ritual objects that reflected both practical and symbolic thinking, a testimony to a species whose culture and technology evolved hand in hand with migration. And every river crossed, every mountain climbed, and every forest navigated demanded ingenuity, cooperation, and resilience. The eventual crossing into the Americas via the Bering Land Bridge, whether along a coastal route hugging the Pacific or through the ice-free corridor left by retreating glaciers, presented humans with landscapes teeming with previously unknown megafauna, including mammoths, mastodons, and giant sloths, which they hunted with skill and persistence, reshaping ecosystems and driving many species to extinction. Yet they adapted to climates ranging from Arctic tundras to tropical wetlands, and within a few thousand years had spread from Alaska to Patagonia, establishing diverse cultures, languages, and survival strategies that would form the foundation of modern indigenous populations, demonstrating that migration was not merely a movement of bodies, but a crucible of ecological, technological, and cultural innovation. Simultaneously, the peoples of the Pacific Islands, guided by stars, waves, and the flight of birds, embarked on extraordinary voyages across thousands of miles of open ocean, settling islands such as Hawaii, Rapa Nui, and New Zealand, creating societies capable of agriculture, social organization, and maritime navigation that rivaled any contemporary civilization, proving that human ingenuity was bounded only by knowledge, observation, and courage. Throughout these migrations, humans continuously transformed the environment, creating tools, shelters, and social structures that enabled survival and cultural flourishing, leaving traces in DNA, artifacts, and archaeological sites that reveal a story of movement, adaptation, and resilience, and show that every challenge, whether ice, desert, ocean, or predator, prompted new technologies, social strategies, and cultural expression, highlighting the interplay of biology, climate, and intelligence that defines human history. The footprints of these early migrants, from Africa to the farthest reaches of the earth, trace not only survival, but also the origins of language, art, ritual, and social complexity, revealing a species capable of cooperation, abstract thought, and innovation in the face of overwhelming odds, where every river forded, every ocean crossed, and every forest navigated was a triumph of adaptation and endurance, a testament to a relentless curiosity that continues to define us today. Ultimately, the great human migration is a story not of geography alone, but of the human spirit, showing that a fragile population of a few thousand could, through intelligence, cooperation, and daring, colonize every continent, survive cataclysms, reshape ecosystems, and lay the foundations for agriculture, cities, languages, and civilizations, leaving a legacy written in our DNA, our cultures, and the very landscapes we inhabit, a story of exploration, resilience, and transformation that begins in Africa and carries through every corner of the world, reminding us that the desire to move, to adapt, and to thrive is embedded in the essence of humanity, and that the epic journey of our species is one continuous thread linking us to the first brave individuals who dared to step into the unknown.
Under the dense canopies of Southeast Asia and along the winding coasts of the Indian Ocean, early humans pressed onward with a mixture of caution and daring, navigating mangrove forests, river deltas, and monsoon-battered shores with tools sharpened by necessity and knowledge honed over generations, learning to harvest shellfish, catch fish with crafted hooks, and ride simple rafts across turbulent waters. Each voyage an experiment in survival that required acute observation of tides, currents, and the behavior of birds and marine life, until they reached the distant continent of Australia, where their arrival marked one of the most extraordinary feats of early human ingenuity, requiring open sea navigation thousands of years before sails, and leaving an indelible mark on the continent's ecosystems as the megafauna, including giant wombats, marsupial lions, and enormous flightless birds, vanished under the combined pressure of human hunting and environmental changes, demonstrating that wherever humans moved, they reshaped the world even as it shaped them. Meanwhile, in Europe, the icy grip of the last glacial maximum presented a landscape of snow, ice, and predator-filled forests that would have been uninhabitable for lesser species, Yet humans adapted through clothing made of layered hides, controlled fire to provide warmth and protection, and sophisticated hunting techniques that involved coordinated drives and traps, gradually supplanting the Neanderthals in establishing populations whose symbolic thinking is evidenced in cave work, carvings, and burial rituals, artifacts that reveal not only survival skills but also an emerging consciousness capable of abstract thought, cultural continuity, and ritualistic behavior, showcasing the interplay between technology, cognition, and adaptation. As they moved east and north across Central Asia and Siberia, humans faced deserts, steppe, and taiga, enduring extreme winters, hunting large game, and learning to preserve food, construct temporary shelters, and navigate vast expanses of ice and river systems, while simultaneously developing social bonds that ensured mutual protection, knowledge transfer, and communal decision-making, a level of organization that allowed populations to thrive where alone they might have perished, and that also facilitated cultural innovations including ornamentation, symbolic objects, and proto-language, demonstrating that migration was as much about culture and cognition as it was about movement across terrain. The crossing into the Americas presented the next grand challenge, with humans traveling across Beringia, a land bridge exposed during lower sea levels, or hugging the Pacific coastline in early maritime journeys, encountering a new world teeming with species entirely unfamiliar to them, from mammoths and mastodons to giant sloths, and they adapted hunting strategies to each environment, from tundra to temperate forests to tropical wetlands, employing tools, coordinated strategies, and knowledge of animal behavior, gradually spreading from Alaska down to Patagonia over centuries, leaving behind archaeological traces including Clovis points, campsites, and butchery marks, each one a testament to innovation and adaptability, and shaping ecosystems profoundly through hunting, gathering, and later, early plant management, altering the composition of flora and fauna in ways that are still detectable today. As humans reached the islands of the Pacific, Polynesian navigators, guided by the stars, the flight patterns of birds, the motion of waves, and the swells of the ocean, undertook journeys spanning thousands of miles of open water, settling isolated islands such as Hawaii, Rapa Nui, and New Zealand, where they established societies with complex social hierarchies, cultivated crops like taro and sweet potato, domesticated animals, and created tools and rituals suited to the isolation and challenges of these remote environments, demonstrating a combination of maritime skill, ecological knowledge, and social cohesion unparalleled in human history, and proving that adaptation was not limited to land but extended to the mastery of oceanic travel. Throughout these migrations, humans continually transform both themselves and the world around them, creating tools, shelters, and social structures that enable survival, cultural expression, and technological development, leaving behind artifacts, settlement patterns, and DNA that allow modern science to trace their journeys with increasing clarity, revealing a pattern of innovation and adaptation that was dynamic and regionally responsive, from ice-covered tundras to dense tropical forests, from arid steppes to volcanic archipelagos, showing that movement was both a driver of cultural evolution and a consequence of environmental pressures. The story of migration across Asia, Australia, and Europe illustrates a species capable of observing, experimenting, and innovating at every step, learning to exploit rivers, coasts, and forests, mastering fire, food storage, and clothing, and developing symbolic and social behaviors that would form the foundation for future civilizations, while continuously responding to shifting climates, changing ecosystems, and the arrival of new challenges and competitors, showing that human survival was dependent not on brute strength alone, but on intelligence, cooperation, and the capacity to envision solutions beyond immediate necessity. Every footfall, every crossing, every adaptation during this chapter of human expansion tells a story of resilience, ingenuity, and courage, where small groups face extreme environments, unpredictable predators, and vast distances with nothing but collective knowledge and evolving technology, gradually knitting together the network of human settlement across continents, and in doing so, establishing the patterns of culture, social organization, and technological experimentation that continue to resonate in modern populations. As they colonized new territories, humans not only survived but thrived,
developing region-specific tools, art, and subsistence strategies, creating the earliest forms of long-term settlements, experimenting with plant management, and leaving behind a record of social and cultural innovation that speaks to intelligence, foresight, and cooperation, illustrating the profound interplay between movement, environment, and culture, and how each migration, whether over land or across water, contributed to the evolutionary trajectory of Homo sapiens. In essence, Chapter 2 of The Great Human Migration chronicles the period when humans mastered coastlines, rivers, forests, and ice-covered plains, crossed vast oceans, and learned to adapt to every environment on the planet, demonstrating that intelligence, collaboration, and innovation are inseparable from the very act of migration, and that every tool, fire pit, dwelling, and artistic expression was both a survival strategy and a testament to a species shaping itself as much as it shaped the world. A narrative of endurance and ingenuity that connects the earliest Australians, Europeans, Asians, and Pacific Islanders to the human story that continues to unfold today.
Crossing from the frozen expanses of Siberia into the uncharted lands of the Americas, early humans embarked on a journey that would define the final great frontier of the Great Human Migration, stepping into territories no human had ever seen, where mammoths, mastodons, giant sloths, and other megafauna roamed the vast plains, forests, and tundras, and where survival demanded ingenuity, adaptability, and cooperation at every turn. As these pioneers learned to track herds, fashion tools capable of killing and processing enormous prey, store and preserve food, and adapt to climates ranging from Arctic ice to tropical wetlands, gradually spreading from Alaska down to Patagonia over centuries, leaving behind campsites, hunting implements, and evidence of ritualistic behavior that reveal both practical skill and the emergence of complex social structures. In the Americas, humans encountered ecological systems entirely distinct from those in Africa, Asia, and Europe, forcing them to innovate new strategies, from the development of Clovis points and spear throwers for hunting large game, to the domestication of dogs as companions and hunting aids, and to understand seasonal migration patterns, plant cycles, and weather phenomena, creating the foundations of knowledge that would sustain communities for generations. While their activities reshaped the landscapes, contributing to the extinction of megafauna and altering vegetation patterns, highlighting the profound impact of human presence on previously untouched ecosystems. Simultaneously in the Pacific, the Polynesian navigators undertook some of the most extraordinary feats of exploration in human history. Guided by the stars, the flight paths of birds, the swell of waves, and subtle shifts in ocean currents, venturing thousands of miles across open ocean to settle islands like Hawaii, Rapa Nui, and New Zealand, establishing agricultural systems for taro, sweet potato, and other crops, domesticating chickens, pigs, and dogs, and creating intricate social hierarchies and cultural practices that allowed communities to thrive in isolated and often volatile environments, demonstrating a combination of maritime skill, ecological understanding, and social cohesion unmatched by any other early societies. Throughout these final stages of migration, humans continuously adapted to diverse climates, landscapes, and challenges, developing clothing, shelter, and tools appropriate to deserts, mountains, jungles, tundras, and islands, while also creating art, ritual, and symbolic expression that speaks to an emergent consciousness capable of abstract thought, planning, and culture, a reflection of the inseparable link between survival and cognition, where every innovation not only ensured existence, but also laid the groundwork for complex societies. Archaeological evidence, including cave sites, hearths, tool assemblages, and ceremonial artifacts, alongside genetic studies tracing founder effects, admixture, and population dispersal, reveals a detailed map of human movement, showing how these final waves of migration connected disparate continents, integrated populations, and generated cultural and technological diversity, while highlighting the immense challenges faced, from navigating ice sheets and glacial rivers to surviving in tropical rainforests and arid deserts, where knowledge of local flora, fauna, seasonal cycles, and terrain was critical. In the Americas, humans developed hunting and foraging strategies that varied regionally, exploiting riverine, coastal, forested, and grassland environments, while also experimenting with early forms of plant management and proto-agriculture,
setting the stage for the rise of complex civilizations such as the Olmec, Maya, and Andean societies thousands of years later, showing that migration was both a biological and cultural catalyst, shaping human evolution and societal development simultaneously. The Polynesian expansion across the Pacific further exemplifies human creativity and adaptability, as these voyagers engineered double-hulled canoes capable of long-distance travel, developed celestial navigation techniques, observed ocean swells, and maintained social and kinship structures that ensured knowledge transfer and community cohesion across generations, proving that human survival and expansion relied not only on physical endurance but on intellectual, social, and technological ingenuity. The ecological impact of these migrations is equally profound, as humans altered landscapes through hunting, fire management, and the introduction of domesticated species, creating new niches for plants and animals, and demonstrating an enduring capacity to influence and transform the environment, for better or worse, a pattern repeated in every corner of the globe from the moment humans first stepped out of Africa. Cultural expression flourished alongside technological adaptation, with symbolic objects, art, ceremonial sites, and ritual practices emerging as integral components of survival, reflecting a cognitive leap that allowed humans to plan for the future, communicate complex ideas, and maintain social cohesion in increasingly large and dispersed populations, showing that migration was a crucible not just of biology, but of culture, intelligence, and creativity. The final stages of the Great Human Migration tell a story of endurance, innovation, and interconnectedness, where every ocean crossed, mountain scaled, river forded, and forest traversed demanded acute observation, cooperation, and problem solving, and where each challenge surmounted contributed to the establishment of a global network of human presence, with distinct yet interconnected cultures, technologies, and survival strategies that would persist, evolve, and give rise to civilizations across continents. In essence, the Americas and Pacific chapters of human migration illustrate the remarkable capacity of Homo sapiens to adapt to new environments, transform ecosystems, and develop culture and technology in response to both challenges and opportunities, a narrative that demonstrates the inseparable relationship between exploration, cognition, and survival. As these humans settled the farthest reaches of the planet, they left behind traces in DNA, tools, dwellings, and ceremonial artifacts, evidence that the story of migration is also a story of human ingenuity, curiosity, and resilience, connecting past to present, showing that the species' ability to move, adapt, and innovate is the foundation upon which modern human societies rest. Every step across the Americas and Pacific Islands represents a triumph over the unknown, a testament to the courage, intelligence, and social cooperation that define humanity, proving that the relentless drive to explore, adapt, and endure is encoded in our very essence, and that the epic journey of our species, from Africa across continents, through ice and desert, over ocean and mountain, is a continuous thread linking every human being alive today to the first individuals who dared to step into a world that no one had ever walked.
As we look back across 70,000 years of human history, the Great Human Migration reveals not just the movement of bodies across continents, but the unfolding of a species' remarkable capacity to adapt, innovate, and survive against every imaginable obstacle. From the sun-scorched plains of Africa to the icebound expanses of Siberia, from the vast deserts of the Americas to the remote islands of the Pacific, a journey that required intelligence, cooperation, and courage at every step. And in tracing these migrations through DNA, artifacts, and the remnants of ancient settlements, we see the echoes of those first explorers in every corner of the globe, in the languages we speak, the cultures we inherit, and the technologies we develop, showing that the impulses that drove our ancestors to leave the safety of the Rift Valley, to cross straits, rivers, mountains, and oceans are the same impulses that continue to define humanity today. Each step taken by these early humans was an experiment in survival, an exercise in observation, ingenuity, and social cohesion, where fire, tools, shelter, and art became instruments not just of existence, but of identity, and where the challenges of climate, predators, and unfamiliar landscapes forged communities that were resilient, inventive, and adaptive, capable of transforming their environment while simultaneously being shaped by it, leaving an indelible mark on the world. From the megafauna-driven plains of Australia to the frozen forests of Europe,
From the lush river valleys of Asia to the sprawling wilderness of the Americas, and across the endless stretches of the Pacific Ocean, humans adapted to every ecosystem, learning to hunt, gather, farm, navigate, and communicate, weaving a complex tapestry of culture, technology, and knowledge that forms the bedrock of modern civilizations, and revealing that migration was never just a physical act, but a profound cultural and cognitive journey that transformed both species and world. The footprints of these migrations, preserved in genes, tools, art, and oral traditions, connect us to those first daring explorers, reminding us that the drive to move, to learn, and to create is an intrinsic part of being human. That every human alive today carries a legacy of curiosity, resilience, and ingenuity. And that the journey from Africa to every corner of the planet is not merely a story of survival, but a story of connection, innovation, and the shared experience that unites us across time and space.